The opposing side to Donald Trump in his criminal case are the people of the state of New York. That's 20 million people. The jury pool will be chosen from the people of Manhattan, a population of 1.6 million people. And it is really only the people of Manhattan who need to pay some attention to the American legal principle of the presumption of innocence. Because if you are an adult in Manhattan, there is a chance that you could end up on this jury. And it could be a challenge for the people of Manhattan to be faithful to the presumption of innocence if they are jurors in the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, defendant. Because only 11% of the voters in Manhattan voted for Donald Trump for president. And no doubt many of the Manhattan voters who voted against Donald Trump for president in the last election voted against him because of what they learned about the hush money payments that he admitted he made to Stormy Daniels through Michael Cohen, who went to federal prison during the Trump presidency for delivering those hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. The history of criminal trials of politicians shows that the political affiliation of the jury is not as important as the evidence. In fact, it's usually not important at all. Marion Barry was elected mayor of Washington, D.C. in 1978 with 70% of the vote. He was reelected with 82% of the vote. And he kept getting reelected until he was convicted by a Washington, D.C. jury in 1990 on a drug charge. Most of those jurors, possibly all of those jurors, voted for Marion Barry for mayor, and they voted guilty for defendant Marion Barry because of the evidence. Manhattan jurors can be as fair about the evidence in the Trump case as Washington, D.C. jurors were in the Marion Barry case. Luckily for you watching at home, especially those of you who do not live in Manhattan, you do not have to abide by the presumption of innocence for 1 second. The presumption of innocence is a principle that guides the procedures of our criminal courtrooms in this country, and no one outside of that courtroom is in any way bound by the presumption of innocence. On November 24th, 1963, 2 days after Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated President John F. Kennedy in Dallas, the entire country watched on live television as Jack Ruby stepped forward in a Dallas police station and shot and murdered Lee Harvey Oswald on live TV. Everyone in America saw that murder committed live on television. No one for a single second presumed Jack Ruby was innocent. Eventually, a jury was impaneled in Dallas who listened to Jack Ruby's defense of being so carried away emotionally that he didn't know what he was doing. And of course, they convicted him of murder. If those jurors actually reached a posture that allowed them to presume the innocence of Jack Ruby, at least at the outset of the trial, then they did their duty. But it was only their duty to do. And no one else in America for a single second was ever asked to apply the presumption of innocence to the murderer who they saw commit murder on live television. So if you don't live in Manhattan, and if you don't live in Fulton County, Georgia, and if you don't live in Washington, D.C., where criminal juries might be selected for trials involving Donald Trump, you get to presume whatever you want. With most highly publicized trials, I usually do not presume innocence and I do not presume guilt because I know for certain that I do not know all the evidence. Based on my experience in courtrooms, the only way to know all the evidence is to hear every single word that the jury hears in the trial, which no one outside the courtroom ever does. So we never know all that evidence. That's the way I'd recommend going into the Trump trials. You should consider beginning your attention to the Trump criminal prosecutions with the humility that you do not know all of the evidence. There could be evidence that works in Donald Trump's favor, and none of us know about it yet. There could be evidence that works very strongly against Donald Trump that none of us know about yet. But the presumption of Donald Trump's innocence is a legal procedural framework that only applies in the courtroom and not in your living room.